We wait on pins and needles for an Earth-directed solar storm to arrive and possibly bring us a good chance for Aurora. Will it give us something to celebrate with our Valentines? Those stories and more in the news this week. The space weather this week is getting really exciting. Just like we mentioned last week, region 2699 has not disappointed us. It has fired a solar storm right when it was in the middle of the Earth strike zone. And this storm is now on its way to Earth. In fact, it could hit us at any moment. And right now it's still Valentine's Day in certain parts of the world. So some of you may get lucky enough to celebrate Valentine's with Aurora. And then on top of that, we have this elongated coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here in the next couple days. It is sending fast wind on the tails of that solar storm. So even though we may not get some really big storming, intense storming, it should last for a long period of time as we get kind of a 1-2 punch. Switching to your M-flare threat meter, you can see back on the 4th is when region 2699 came into view, and pop up goes the X-ray flux and the solar flux. You amateur radio operators and emergency responders have been enjoying some decent radio propagation as long as this region has been in Earth view. It's been popping a few C-class flares, even a couple near M-class flares, but has been reasonably quiet, not really an M-flare player. And then the beginning of the 12th, bam, it pops up this very long duration C-class flare. And when you see those big long duration flares like that, that usually means that there's an eruption with a solar storm that's being launched, and that's exactly what has happened. Since then, the region has kind of quieted down a little bit, but we've got a couple more days before this region rotates out of Earth view, and then probably starting next week, the radio propagation is going to start tanking again. Switching to your solar storm conditions, you can see we've actually been quiet for quite some time. We've been bumping around between normal conditions to even unsettled conditions. And really the only people getting some decent aurora are up there at high latitudes. You know who you are, the ones who are actually getting decent aurora views. The rest of us, meanwhile, have been kind of waiting in a dry spell for a while. Luckily, these conditions aren't going to last because we are anticipating the hit from that solar storm that's en route to Earth, and we could actually bump up to storm levels, or at least active levels, here in the next 24 hours or so. So when exactly is this solar storm supposed to hit us? Well, this is our prediction model, NLUL. This is NOAA's version of the model. The top panel's density, the bottom panel's velocity, and you can see that solar storm coming out and hitting Earth. It's predicted to hit Earth right on the 14th, about midday, a little bit later, which is Valentine's Day. But you can see that this green ribbon of stuff here, this is actually due to some fast wind that is coming up behind the solar storm. This green ribbon is actually serving to slow this solar storm down, and it makes predictions quite complicated. So even though it's supposed to arrive on Valentine's Day, according to NOAA, it hasn't gotten here quite yet. Now, if we switch to NASA's version of the model for NLUL, you can see here this is also a density map. You can see that solar storm coming out, and when it hits Earth, now NASA's version is saying that the storm should hit about noon on the 15th. So the predictions are almost a day apart. But again, this is complicated because the solar wind behind the storm is complicated, and it's hard to know exactly how much this poor storm is going to be pushed and pulled by the fast wind behind it. Switching to your solar storm and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the hit from that incoming Earth-directed solar storm. At high latitudes, NOAA is expecting about a 60% chance of a major storm, with minor storm conditions to follow after that, and then active conditions to follow after that. We're expecting probably 4 days of some decent storming because we get that high-speed wind that's going to kick in right after that big solar storm hits. Now, at mid-latitudes, we're only expecting active conditions over the next couple days with about a 30% chance of a minor storm. And again, things will last. You get some type of disturbance easily for the next couple days, maybe even 3 or 4 days. It really depends upon how this 1-2 punch with the solar storm and the fast wind kind of combine to extend our storming. So the nice thing is, you aurora photographers, this isn't going to be a super intense set of storms, but it's long duration. So you will have multiple chances to get your shots in. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, region 2699 has given us a lot of gifts, including a chance for Aurora, and you amateur radio operators and emergency responders have definitely enjoyed some decent propagation over the last couple weeks, but now it's time to say goodbye. We only have a couple days left before this region rotates to the backside of the sun. NOAA's giving about a 5 to 10% chance of an M-class flare over the next day or two, and then the M flare risk drops precipitously back to basically normal. We'll have a spotless sun most likely. Now, we also have a slight risk for a radiation storm over the next couple days as that region rotates off to the west limb. If it fires a big flare, we oftentimes get a radiation storm when it's on the west limb. But the big story here is the solar flux. Region 2699 is going to take the solar flux with it when it disappears. So you amateur radio operators, you emergency responders, enjoy the propagation here because as we start next week, we're probably going to go back to poor conditions. So the space weather this week is very exciting. We are on pins and needles waiting for the Valentine's Day storm to hit us. It's going to be followed by some fast wind. So you Aurora photographers, you might get an extended chance to get Aurora over a couple days or so, and you get bonus points for upping the romance factor in your shots. Now, you amateur radio operators and emergency responders, you should be enjoying some decent propagation on the Earth's day side for the next couple of days before region 2699 rotates to the backside of the sun and propagation will tank. Now, you might have some issues on the Earth's night side during the solar storm, but then again, you might get some auroral propagation, and that'll be a bit fun too. As far as you GPS operators are concerned, on the day side, you should be in good shape. On the night side, if you're at high latitudes near Aurora, that could be a little bit of an issue for you, and maybe at the dawn dust terminators. So just kind of be a little bit more aware over the next couple days. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.